What's the haps? I'm John, aka Meroka, and welcome to Spiel. We're in Diamond Bishop, which is a freeze gate this week. I think we did freeze last week, but that is not really the reason I'm here. The reason I chose this is because it is a no compound gate. It is one of those glorious things. You don't get those too often. Let's have a look at the gate map. See the gate map? See how lovely it is? See how that's not a compound? None of those are compounds. None of those are compounds. And none of those are compounds. Isn't it wonderful? It's a dream come true. I'm so happy. Oh my god, there are no compounds. This is going to be such a good episode. This is going to be fun. So yeah, that's the thing. So let's do some... No, let's not do Spiral Knights news, because there is none! No Spiral Knights news to speak of. The New Year's stuff is over. If you're wanting freebies and prizes and stuff, I hope you logged on enough times to try and snag yourself some of those. I didn't get anything. I didn't log on a whole heck of a lot, though. I guess some people probably will have done. If you wanted something, I hope you got something. I hope it was nice for you. I hope you had a good New Year. This is, speaking of New Year, yes, Happy New Year! I suppose this is actually the first Spiral Spiel of the New Year. I mean, I did New Year's resolutions last week, but that was actually New Year's Eve, wasn't it? So this actually does mark the first Spiral Spiel of 2015. Quite a momentous occasion, possibly, sort of, in a manner of speaking. So yes, that's a occasion to celebrate, perhaps. So let's celebrate it by doing what we usually do, which is walking and talking and killing things. Because that's a fun way to go through life. So I guess if we've got no Spiral Knights news to talk about, let's briefly do a small amount of channel stuff. Oh good, I'm stuck in the freeze things. I don't have any. I don't know if I got freeze resistance on this gear. Probably not. Not a lot. Let's mention briefly Indie Insight. So thank you to Alivai. Is that how I pronounce that name right? Alivai, wasn't it? Alivai, yes. That one's always a trouble one for me. For suggesting Indie Insight. Somebody else did in fact suggest Indie Insight, and well, they did it 3 days after Alivai already suggested that. So you know what? I can't really count that. I appreciate that you also suggested a great name, and you know, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, you probably weren't going through the comments to find something that looked good and then copying it. I don't think there was any real malice or ill intent there, but at the same time, it'd been done. So I can't, afraid, give credit to the second person who suggested the same name. But thank you for nonetheless, I quite like that one. I drew up a logo-y kind of thing, a Indie Insight logo, so I think it looks kind of cute. I did a couple designs. I wasn't too happy on the first one. I was kind of going for a silver shiny thing, and then it kind of just looked grey. Apparently I don't know how to do silvers particularly well in paint.net, but that's my failing. Just thoroughly my failing. So we're going with the vibrant, colourful, sort of hand-drawn kind of look on the logo, so I think it looks kind of cool. I think that works, and I'm quite enjoying doing that series. So enjoy many more interesting indies. I think the advantage of that series for me is compared to Advent of Indies around which it is based, is that there's a little bit of curatorship can actually go into it, whereas Advent of Indies, I mostly was kind of at the whims of whatever Rat King Entertainment decided was to be promoted on that given day, and in a lot of cases I don't necessarily know that that's promoted so much as it tends to be colleagues, friends of Rat King Entertainment, people they know, and I just wish to give a bit of support to, and absolutely some of those people are great artists and great game designers and whatnot, but in a lot of cases, I don't know, it didn't work out for me at any rate, whereas I wanted to be up, didn't I, not across. In a lot of cases there was stuff like devs put out, oh, you have a free game soundtrack, and it didn't really work with my format, so rather than having someone saying, here's what you make the video on today, not that they told me to make videos or anything, I wanted to do that, but it just didn't kind of work out this year. So having the freedom to just go and browse through libraries of stuff and go, hey, that looks really cool, I'd like to take a look at that, I think the advantage of the Indie Insight format is that I can actually find stuff that genuinely actually looks pretty good, rather than just being at someone else's whims, which I rather like. So I'm I'm optimistic about the Indian site, and actually already, so far the first video I put out has already got more views than many of my Advent of Indies videos did, so I don't know, maybe it's better received. So yes, if you want to see those things, keep watching them, because that tells me people want to see them, and I can keep making them. Because that's fun. I like making things that people want to watch. I also like making things that are fun, so if they happen to overlap, then that works out for everybody, you know? So yes, Advent of Indies is now going to be a thing, 6 PM GMT, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if you are terribly interested in the schedule on that one. So a little earlier in the day if you're over in the Americas, but for the rest of the civilized world, that's an early evening thing. I kid, America, I kid. You're not totally uncivilized, just some of you. So anyway, let's do some questiones, because that's the thing we do. That's the main meat of the series. Got a few from a few people this week, some interesting stuffs, some chit-chatty stuffs. Let's do the whole dang lot. I got from Greenlink, asks me to play Nostradamus, I think. This is probably fairly cliche of now, but I'm genuinely interested. What are your favourite moments of 2014, and do you have any predictions about any events to happen this year? How many times did I was busy reading the screen. I feel like I've been whacking at that yellow crystal for like 30 seconds there. I've probably just been wailing into the air there. Oh man, that's such a big crystal. But I want purple. Oh, I'll take the big one because it's big. Big crystals are big, man. Need to collect the big shinies. And sooner or later, at some point in the future, there must be a blue sprite added. So then I will be the one that is laughing, for I will have the extra... Is this a 6 or is it an 8? I think it's an 8. I will have the extra 8 crystals, and then I will be a wonderfully happy man. So yes, good stuffs. Yes, things from 2014. I can't think of many particularly, worldwide, global, major things that were amazingly positive about 2014. This is perhaps a bias of the news. Everyone's, you know how the news works. Everyone says, oh, it's doom and gloom all over. It's wars and death and destruction and disease, Ebola spreading, and people fighting and terrorists, and it's all misery and fear and whatnot. So, I don't know if there's anything noteworthy. A lot of it generally tends to get glossed over. I think worldwide speaking, probably one of the most notable events that was pretty awesome was the Rosetta mission landing on the comet. That was pretty sweet. That's an incredible achievement, and congratulations to those guys for doing that. And I think it's fantastic that we as a species have the technology to do that. That's incredible. So that was a pretty good moment. I think otherwise, kind of great moments from 2014 would have to be more personal stuff, I think. I went out with a buddy for a trip in September, I think it was, out to the Lake District. Hired a boat for a day, just sat out on Lake Windermere, cruising around, and watched the 2 Lancaster bombers fly over, which was pretty awesome. That was a cool day out. So it's just sort of little events like that that make life worthwhile. Those were fun things for the year, rather than any specific global things, because it tends to be a lot of doom and gloom around the world. I did watch just the other day Charlie Brooker's 2014 wipe, which, well, if you're not familiar with Charlie Brooker stuff, it's often a very cynical, maybe slightly satirical take on the events of the year. Just basically bombing through, in a 1-hour program, the events of 2014, and basically turning it into, trying to twist it into some sort of horror? Not horror. Humor. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't know where I went with words. I can't say anything. What am I saying? I'm saying I need to fight gremlins, and I'm wearing the right gear for gremlins. Although, I do have a question, just to deviate from Greenlink stuff for the moment, is Zaralambos Sakiridis? Sakiridis. Sorry, I'm butchering that name. Says, why do you always use the same swords? I don't know. Let's change it up. I always use the same swords because I don't have many that are terribly interesting. I've got my Ashron, I've got Barbara's Thornblade, and I've got Voltage, and those do everything. Those are great. I've got Fang of Vogue, but nobody uses Fang of Vogue seriously. Also, it's not as heated up as Voltage, so it's not as powerful. I've got Dread Venom Striker, which is fun. I might use that now. I got Grand Faust, which was actually heated up prior to the heat changes, so it is actually level 10, but I don't like slow swords. I prefer the Acheron to the Grand Faust in terms of swords. I don't know how or why I ended up with the Grand Faust, but I'm not a fan of slow swords, so that's another thing. And War Master Rocket Hammer is just a very, very silly weapon. I know a lot of people like it. I can't for the life of me get the hang of it, so nope. Obsidian Edge is not heated up in any way enough to be useful to compete with the Acheron, so I just stick with the Acheron. Plus that one's got UVs on it, and it's just amazing, so yeah. Alright, let's change stuff up. We've got... Where is it? I've got it in here somewhere. It's probably near the top, actually, isn't it? No. Oh, yes, DVS ASI Max. Yup. That's my thing. That's my thing. I probably need to re-equip my Blazing Pulsar. There we go, okay. Full silly gear run. Woo! I got my girly hat on as well. Apparently this set comes with my girly hat and girly dress. So, yay! Going girly. Just because I like it. Guy likes to feel pretty once in a while, you know? So, yeah, this is as much movement speed increase as I can muster, which is actually high, not very high. I am working on getting very high. And attack speed maximum on an already very fast sword. So, it cuts through things like a very silly thing. It's not a very practical loadout, but it's a lot of fun to use. It's also got a very low level shield, so it's not got much defense. But I can run away from things pretty fast and cut through them pretty fast as well. Oh, and it poisons everything. So it's actually a really, really fun loadout. So that's good. That's awesome. Actually, that's making a mess of these guys reasonably well. I like this. Yes, on to predictions for the coming year. I predict more doom and gloom. Things don't tend to go too well in the world. Everything's messed up, and it's mostly politics' fault. So, yes, blame all the politics. So, yeah, things that could go well in 2015? I don't know. It's obviously 2015, so we are due flying cars at any rate. We've got the hoverboards, kind of, in a very limited sort of fashion. Weren't Nike working on shoes that could lace themselves up fairly recently? I am, of course, making the obvious and obligatory Back to the Future references here. So, yeah, that'd be cool if we could see some of that stuff. Yeah, let's get on the Back to the Future stuff. I could really use some pills or healing or something. Could we bloop you? There we go. Give me some hearts. 1 heart is better than 0 hearts. It's not good. I'm not really Nostradamus here. I'm not going to predict the future. I'm not. Do I have any? Oh yeah, I can remove it with that. That's good. Good. I don't feel well equipped to predict things. The problem is a lot of the advances and changes and improvements in the world tend to come from. They often tend to come from places you don't expect them to. Whenever someone comes out of left field and says, "Hey, we've completely innovated and changed and revolutionized X, Y, Z," it's usually something you never expected to see coming, and it's often something minor or niche or very, very specialized. So, honestly, I don't have enough specialized information or knowledge of the world to be able to tell you exactly what is going to be revolutionized in the coming year. So, my one area of expertise is video games. I don't know. What's going to be revolutionized in video games in 2015? I keep seeing a lot of people predicting that there's kind of a indie game bubble that's going to burst, and suddenly all indie games are going to become unsuccessful just because there's too many of them. I don't know. I think indie games have always been around. It's just that they're more visible these days. I think there's as many people as there ever have been, probably more so because it's more accessible. So I don't know. Is that an issue? There's the issue of visibility, certainly, and with Steam making changes, it's much, much harder to get into that kind of thing, but I think as long as people have the passion and the drive to do it, I don't think it's necessarily going to go anywhere, but within video games, yes, there's a lot of people saying, oh, indie games are on the way out, yeah, nobody's going to buy indie games in 2015 because bubbles and whatnot. I don't know. These are sort of people who think they know everything about the industry, and I don't know, to be fair, they usually do know a fair bit, but come on, let's get rid of the healers. There we go. At the same time, See, it's a very cynical viewpoint, and I don't feel like anything dramatic is going to change. People for many a year now have been struggling with visibility. There's always been those tiny artists that's just sort of making projects in their bedrooms and trying to get it out into the world and not really being terribly successful about it. I don't think that's really going to change now. I think there's a lot of people who are just happy as long as they can make enough money out of stuff to keep a roof over their head, and then they can continue working on things that they love, and I think that's great that people can and do that. Which is what we're trying to do on YouTube, I think, for many people as well. It's like, hey, just doing what we love. If I can possibly make a living out of that, that would be fantastic. I'd love to be able to do that. So yes, poiple. I will take a poiple. Yes, I will. There's lots of mini poiples. Let's throw some fire at you, because why not? Probably starting to get some of these things poisoned. Nope, he's going to hit me in the back with the hammer. Don't want that. Ouch. Yeah, the problem with this is it doesn't quite kill... It's a fast weapon, but it doesn't really kill them fast enough to be viable, because it's normal damage. Whereas if I were to go at these guys with Acheron, I could probably, with a charge attack, one-shot quite a lot of stuff. Whereas here I've got to spend a little while hacking through stuff. Doesn't mean it's not a fun sword to use, though. It's a very silly thing. It's awesome. I'm probably going to change back to a sensible loadout on the next floor, because this is just... The reason I use the same swords every time is because they're the most practical and viable way to kill all the things. A question which seemed more rhetorical and related to resolutions and things that Green Link posed. But I will delve on nonetheless, assuming I don't die here through incompetence and buffoonery. Was... What the heck do I actually want to do with my life? I don't know, what do you want to do? 17 years later, I still have no clue. I've generally managed to narrow it down by not picking subjects that don't interest me anymore. I think that's all most people do. But I still have no solid idea on any form of career. I should probably try to change that sometime soon. Well, if I may offer some words of wisdom from someone who's been through that. I still ain't got any clue really what I want to do, and I don't think many people do, really. Broadly speaking, going through life, quite a lot of people don't really know what they want to do with their lives. I think the people that actually do seem to have a solid grip and handle on what the heck they're doing generally are in the minority, and they can tend to be the most visible, the most successful people, the people that sort of have everything sorted and together while they're still in their teens. They're like, they're the ones you'll... I've got a friend of mine who's in a much higher paying job, and he's been working on the same career since he was in his teens, and he's got it together, and he's, yeah, okay. You know what you're doing pretty well out of it, that's fine. I wish I was in that position, but the vast majority of people are not so fortunate. Most people still continue blundering well through their 20s, probably into their 30s, not really knowing quite what they want to do in life, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As long as you can find something that makes you happy, I think that's the important thing. You don't have to be doing your ideal and perfect career. Just be happy. That's all there is to it. I may just try and finish this floor, because I don't think I can kill those guys without taking a hit and dying. And then I will have to use a spark of life, and I don't want to do that. So let's just hop on the elevator and see you guys later. Bye. So yeah, don't sweat it. I do feel like the education system, particularly in the UK, is, I don't know, probably very similar in other countries, but obviously UK is where I speak from. I think it's kind of weird that one gears everyone up to try and force you into picking a career and a life path sort of by the age of 17, 18-ish. And honestly, how many 17, 18-year-olds are really well qualified to actually say what they want to do with the rest of their entire lives? I would say probably not many. Certainly speaking from personal experience and knowing my peers that I do, I would say plenty of people by the age of 17, 18 are probably like, yeah, they want me to pick something, but I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know what I feel like. The career market's weird at the minute in that everyone's demanding, I know, again, speaking from personal experience, a lot of people demanding experience in fields, and it's like, well, I have qualifications, but apparently that doesn't count for anything anymore. Apparently I need to actually do the job, but I can't do the job until I've done the job. getting anywhere in anything in life these days is just a very, very weird position to be in. So, don't sweat it, everybody feels like that. This is normal. Anyway, more interesting topics to talk about. So we have some space stuff, because I like space stuff. Alivai asks, what do you think of the revived Kepler Telescope finding an exoplanet after being damaged and given up on by NASA? I think that's pretty cool. I will say I've done a little bit of research on the Space Telescope, as is my way. And to be fair, you may be misrepresenting things a little bit there. The Kepler Space Telescope was, for some background facts here, launched in 2009, and it was expected to run for 3.5 years and discover a lot of exoplanets, extrasolar planets, or exoplanets for short, which is planets around stars that are not our own sun. Other star systems around the galaxy and the universe, predominantly the galaxy. It'd be very difficult to spot them in other galaxies, so yeah, our own galaxy, by and large, if not entirely. Looking for other stars, which is cool. Basically, in the interests of future space exploration, it would be nice to know which ones could potentially sustain human life, so that when we do decide to go out and go forth and conquer the galaxy after all that interstellar travel that we've been talking about in earlier episodes, just to tie everything together quite nicely. So once we've got all those rockets and wormholes and stuff working well, then we can work on actually getting to some planets. But we need to know where those planets are, so that's where stuff like Kepler comes in, trying to find those planets. So it's supposed to run for 3.5 years, and by about when was it, in 2012, which I guess is probably around the end of the mission, about where the anticipated end of the mission was. Basically, the data they'd received, they decided there was too much background noise in it, both from stars, both from the telescope itself. Just a lot of interference causing issues with it. And ultimately, basically they wanted to continue running the mission, and at the time, best estimates suggested that the telescope should be able to run until 2016 without too many issues. So that should be okay. So they're like, alright, let's keep it running for another 4 years. Then after, it would have been May 2012, I think, which would have been almost exactly 4 years into the mission, it developed a critical fault with one of the reaction wheels. It had already developed a similar fault previously. It came with 4 reaction wheels, which fans of Kerbal Space Program will know is one of the ways you turn the spacecraft so it points at things. So one of those had developed an issue, but yeah. Oh, god damn it. I didn't have the health, I didn't have any healing. It was bound to happen sooner or later. Yeah, one of the reaction wheels had developed a fault, but it came with 4, and it only needed 3 to be able to fully function, so they kind of had some redundancies there, some backup stuff, just in case of problems, which was some nice forethought on NASA's part. Good of those guys to be so intelligent, you know. I'm going to grab that pill before I die to death. And, oh god, he revived that, and I got him, that's amazing. That's hilarious. So yeah, the second one eventually... God damn it, stop doing that. A second wheel basically broke down in 2012, which basically meant there were only 2 wheels left in the thing, and there wasn't enough wheels in the thing to be able to actually make it turn. Which is kind of a problem when you're trying to point a telescope, because stars and things tend to orbit and move around the sky, and one tends to want to track things, and a reaction wheel is a pretty good way to track things across the sky. Let's pop that pill before I die. It would be a good idea, I feel. It was kind of... It wasn't abandoned, as you say. I think it's rather unfair to say that NASA just abandoned the project. They made a number of attempts to repair the spacecraft, and after a few months, eventually gave it up as a bad job. They realized they weren't going to be able to do that in any real practical way. So they then put out basically an open question to the scientific community, saying, hey, other scientists who are doing this kind of thing, What are your suggestions for what we can do with this spacecraft? It's not we want to abandon this, it's can we do something else with it that's useful, that's... I mean, it's broken, it's not really working, but it still has the basic functionality. It still functions as a telescope. We just can't turn it very well. It's only got 2/3 of the full turning capability, so it's very difficult to point at things, but does anybody have any suggestions? And ultimately, the project they came up with was K2 Second Light is the name of the second follow-up mission they did. K2 Second Light, basically, it's one of those terrifyingly precise-sounding things. It's like landing on a comet. That you're like, how on earth could you possibly do that? And basically, what they wanted to do was use the pressure of photons from sunlight as a virtual reaction wheel, is the way it's been described. Have I got everything on this floor? I think I'm done on this floor. So basically, by angling the spaceship in a certain way, you can use 2 of the reaction wheels and then use the photons hitting the solar panels to steer the spacecraft, which is... that's a horrifying thing to think about. How on earth do you line up so precisely that the pressure of photons from the sun can provide enough pressure to turn it correctly? So basically, where previously they could look at big stars and find things with large orbits, the way it works... if you're not familiar with the way exoplanets are discovered with space telescopes and things, the way it works is such that they basically point the telescope at the star for a long period of time, many days, and watch for fluctuations in the light levels and monitor radiation and things, and as a planet passes in front of it, it might dim slightly, and I think that's probably much cruder than the way it actually works. I'm probably grossly simplifying it, but I think at the base of it, that's kind of how it works. They look for like slight variations in the light patterns and stuff, and then they can say, oh yes, there's probably a planet that's so big and so far away, causing this star to look like this. And a lot of that requires the telescope being held steady and pointed at a point of the sky for, as I say, great periods of time. Why did I... oh god, I just brought the wrong frigging gear for this, didn't I? I just saw the green level and I was like, oh, this must be beasts. Great, well played. I'm a derp. So yeah, that's that's useful. So now they can't do that. What they're doing is they're changing their focus to much smaller stars, red dwarf stars, which obviously the name of the sci-fi series, the inspiration for the name of the sci-fi series. So they look at much smaller, cooler stars, and for a planet to be in a reasonably useful place for us to use it, in a habitable zone is what they refer to it as. The Earth is smack bang in the middle of the Sun's habitable zone, and most stars have a habitable zone, but depending on the size and temperature and whatnot of the star, that zone will vary. So on a smaller, cooler star, the planet has to be much closer to the star in order to be habitable. And if we're looking for those planets particularly, well, then we don't need to point the telescope at that star for as long, because the planet's so much closer to the star, it goes around the star much faster. So as a consequence, that then allows them to basically... it only takes about 80 days or so, is long enough to be able to figure out whether there is an exoplanet around a much smaller star than is compared to a much larger star, which is exactly how long they can point the Kepler telescope at any given part of the sky with its current capabilities. Using the 2 reaction wheels and the solar power, they can basically... they can point the telescope at an area of the sky for about 80 days before they have to move on to another area. So by focusing their efforts on looking at a much larger area of the sky as a whole, but looking at specific stars for shorter periods of time, they can now find stuff elsewhere that they wouldn't previously have been bothered looking at. Previously, the general efforts of the telescope were focused at one small area of the sky, but pointing at it for a really long period of time to see what they could find. And indeed, in, I believe it was December, they announced, hey, we found another exoplanet from this new mission, so that's great. So it's doing its job, it can still find things, which is great. I will note, though, that when one compares it to how it was operating before, it's not quite as impressive. because one does need to bear in mind that the Kepler Space Telescope found in the first 4 years of its operation before the K2 mission, basically it found 997 exoplanets. Sorry, 996. Sorry, one off. It found 996 exoplanets over the space of 4 years, which is, well, it's 250 a year, so finding one in a little over 6 months, hello, spark of life, I like that, finding one single exoplanet in these little over 6 months it's been in operation doing the K2 project is less than stellar by comparison. It's still nice that they're able to use that, but it's not quite running at the same efficiency. It would be nice if they could still discover them at the same frequency they had before, so one does have to bear that one in mind, certainly. So it's cool that they can salvage stuff and still make it work like that, and the technology involved is downright impressive. But I don't know. One has to ask: is that worth it? Is it worth spending Lord knows how much staring at tiny bits of the sky for 6 months of the year to discover one planet, where in the same time frame before we could have discovered well over 100 planets? Indeed, just yesterday, there's a wonderful announcement that coincides with this rather nicely. Just yesterday, an announcement from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, that the Kepler's mission had discovered another 3 exoplanets. But that, I don't think, comes from the K2 part of it. The initial mission, well, I say it discovered 996... it had also discovered, it had 3,000, it's about 3,200, a little over, unconfirmed candidates. So that's things it thinks might be stars, but need people to analyze the data much more thoroughly for a long period of time to be able to figure that one out. So yeah, that's it's still finding stars from the old mission is kind of the great bit about it, and yeah, I don't know. The new mission just doesn't feel like that's necessarily quite an effective use of NASA budget, as it was under the old regime. Such as it was a regime, which it wasn't a regime. It was a mission. It was an experiment. But hey, that's science. That's the way things work. Things don't always go to plan. Things break down, and in space they're very difficult to repair. Obviously, like I say, it broke down at the 4-year mark, and initially they only planned for it to be up there for 3.5 years, so at that point it had already overstayed how long it was supposed to be up there. So yeah, in other space stuff, I will note that yesterday morning I happened to, whilst laying in bed, check Twitter, and I noticed a bunch of tweets from NASA and associated sources, other space-type agencies and things, and people within space agencies were tweeting about basically SpaceX, Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla and PayPal. Probably heard of the man, he's fairly rich and famous. SpaceX, private space travel company, space exploration and development and research and things. They had a mission yesterday, launch, which was, I wrote down the name of it somewhere. Where did I write that down? The CRS-5, which is what was it? Cargo resupply, that was it. I presume is what CRS stands for. It's cargo resupply to the International Space Station. Their 5th mission to send supplies up to the International Space Station using their Falcon 9 rocket, the Falcon 9 rocket, to launch things up in space. That was scheduled to launch yesterday morning, and I was watching it live, basically. All the tweets were like, hey, look, there's a live webcast, go see the spaceship launch live on your computer. And I was like, yes, that sounds like a great way to spend my morning. I could go for this, yes, let's watch some spaceships. That's fantastic. They cancelled the countdown to launch at 1 minute 21 seconds to go. They found some error that would probably have automatically aborted the launch anyway. If they hadn't stopped it, the automated systems would have gone, hang on, the spaceship's not fit to launch, stop everything, and it probably wouldn't have launched anyway, just from automated systems stopping it. So that's now scheduled to launch not tomorrow morning, Friday morning. If you are if you're interested in viewing such things, yeah, you can go over to the SpaceX website, which I think is just spacex.com/webcast, I think is the actual page you can see it streamed on. And yeah, they've got a little live stream there, and it's like, did I write the time down? 5:09 a.m. Eastern Time, so it's pretty early in the morning for American folks, but folks over in Britain and Europe and whatnot, that's just sort of mid-morning. That's kind of a nice time to go watch some spaceships. Yeah, that'll be just after 10 o'clock over here. So yes, on Friday they're estimating to try and launch, assuming everything goes to plan, at about 10 o'clock on Friday. So if you're interested in seeing that take off, that should be worth seeing. With that mission, they're also trying to land the first stage. Again, if you're familiar with Kerbal Space Program, that's the bit that separates. That's the bit that gets it up first, the big bit that holds most of the fuel and gets it through the bulk of the atmosphere. That then separates, and the rest of the spaceship carries on to go to the International Space Station and whatnot. But the first bit usually just sort of crashes down to Earth or burns up in the atmosphere or whatever. It doesn't come out of things too well, to be honest. In this instance, they're genuinely trying to land it on a boat, which is really friggin' impressive. Ooh, do I want one of those? I bet I could probably sell one of those. I don't know if I want to do that. Do I want to do that? Got some interesting armor there, but whether I could sell any of those, I don't know. I'll hang fire on those now. So there you go. So that's something to watch on Friday. Go check that out. They're going to try and bring that. They're going to try. I don't know how long that's going to take for that to happen. I don't know if that's going to be a short thing to try and rescue the first stage. But basically, that's a step in research to try and make space travel reusable. Basically, they're trying to recycle bits of the spaceship that normally would get destroyed. So it saves a lot of money and resources in sending up more spacecraft, which is pretty useful as far as space development and technology goes. So that's cool. So we are at an end here, so thank you very much for watching. This has been Spiral Spiel. If you are interested in supporting my Patreon, don't forget to check that out in the outro in just a second. There will be a big link on the screen to check that out. And otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, please do remember to leave a like and subscribe if you're not already. So that'll do it for today. Yes, thank you very much for watching. I've been Meroka. This has been Spiral Spiel. I'll see you next time.